dumpies. Put them down, for they'll wait for you forever. Pay attention to them, and they will always love you back. As I stand here in the midst of a treasure trove of books, feel the elation and excitement that any guy who has grown up reading books shall feel. It is a special day for us today as we unveil the book Hungry Kya.
As the moderator of this panel discussion, I think let me begin on entrepreneurship since my book is about better books. So now let's talk about entrepreneurship. I have with me having people from diverse industries, entrepreneurs who have been in the industry and made a name for themselves. So let's begin by asking them a few questions. I'll begin with Dr. Shweta. Dr. Shweta has been an entrepreneur for 10 years now, though she says the last 5 years actually is the entrepreneurship role for you. So in these 10 years, as an entrepreneur, what have been the major challenges that you have faced? Yeah? Because my book is all about entrepreneurship and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. After 23 years working in the corporate, I started from scratch as an entrepreneur, and I can tell you the journey is not easy, right? So I mean, having people like you who have been in the field for so long, I think it will be eye-opening for me as well as for the audience here, right? So if you could just talk about what are the major challenges and how have you overcome them?
So the word entrepreneur has to go along with the word evolving, because if you are an entrepreneur, you have to evolve. So like, not the most smartest or not the most qualified is going to succeed, but the one who's the most ready to adapt to change is the one who succeeds in the game of entrepreneurship. So my challenges as an entrepreneur in 10 years, so for a growing entrepreneur, 10 years is so many challenges. And being in a bookshop, I would like to talk about the book, What Got You Here Won't Take You There. So every time there's a breakdown in what you're trying to do, you've set a goal and you don't reach where you want to go, you know that the old ways of thinking are what needs to be challenged. So what needs to be changed beyond the strategies and the tactics and the team is the belief that is making you work the way you're working. So I think the most challenging part of an entrepreneurship is to look in the mirror, right at yourself and say that, what do I believe that has got me here? And what do I need to change in that belief? And that can be a very grueling journey. So for me, the hard work is not the long hours that you put in at work, but the hard work is the time you put in conversation with yourself and you realize that you didn't succeed. Maybe you succeeded because you had these strengths, but these strengths are not enough now. And now you need to challenge them. So working on yourself and evolving as an individual is what makes the journey of entrepreneurship great. And more important, I think that, I often say that if you're an entrepreneur and then you're not having fun being an entrepreneur, it's really not worth it. So in one word, I believe that anything you do can really be fun if you have the belief that it can be fun, and if it is not fun, what belief of mine I have to challenge. So the biggest challenge was coming back to a position where I was stuck and knowing that now I have to replace my belief with a more empowering belief. That's what has been most challenging for me.
Wonderfully said, Dr. Shweta. I fully agree. Right? She's a fun-loving personality. And what she spoke about is belief. That's the most important thing that I think that drives entrepreneurship. Because the challenges can actually make you sometimes think, okay, what is it? What am I going to do tomorrow? But if you have the belief and you're behind that thing and you start loving what you're doing, you definitely have a way out. Wonderfully said. Actually, I want to ask you a question. You're a second-generation entrepreneur to one of the leading houses in the business of dairy and FMCG today. As a second-generation entrepreneur, when you've come, obviously, there's a lot of hard work the first generation does. Now you're the second generation of that business. So what are the challenges that you see in the business? And obviously, quoting from what Dr. Shweta spoke about, it's like every day is a new challenge. So what do you see as the challenges in the business?
So when I began, which is almost 9 years back, it looks like I was given a red carpet with a beautiful corner office with a beautiful view, but the challenges are very different when you sit on that chair. When you sit on that chair, it actually hit me, everything is working here, there are certain ways, there are certain values that the management believes. And of course there are certain which are right and certain which needs improvement. So that's when you have to adjust to the core values which may or may not be your core value. There have been management who's been working there for like 10 years, 15 years. You want them to look up to you and you also have to look up to them. So adjusting to that. There's a constant even if I have shown my work, there's also a constant comparison of how my working style is different from how my father is working or how my other family members are working. So of course there's a constant comparison even there. But I think I overcame all of those challenges by showing consistency on what I'm doing. So I believed in a certain thing, I showed consistency, and I had a bigger picture in mind, and I kept taking smaller steps towards that. And that's how I overcame this challenge. But I think that constant baggage of me being the second generation is never going to go off. I still tell them, that do you all even take me seriously? But we found a way to, work with each other, and they understand, new generations have newer ideas and they adapt to it. So that's how it is.
Absolutely. You bring in a lot of new insight into the business as a young generation, I'm sure, into the business. Right? Jaideep, you're somebody who's actually helped people build businesses, right? He's somebody who's funded 7 ventures, right? For someone who has been the outsider and on the advisory board, what do you think are the challenges that entrepreneurs face?
So before I answer the question, Seema, I have to thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. And how often do you get to share a panel with ambitious women and beautiful women in the room? Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the challenges for any entrepreneur when they are looking for funding is that how are they going to align their idea of success with what the investor wants to see success in. That alignment is the most difficult to achieve. Most often when we sift through a lot of proposals, when you want to make the investment, you keep asking the questions on return on capital and how you grow the business, what is the value that you're bringing to the table and so on. Most entrepreneurs who are driven by tech, this is the age of tech entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs who are driven by tech, they are focused on how my technology is going to solve the problem rather than thinking about how the solution or the technology is going to help the customer. So that alignment has to be driven. You have to put the customer at the center. If the investor believes that your product is going to give the customer the value, then you've got a saleable product. So to get that alignment is the first challenge. The second challenge is with Excel extrapolation. Certainly.
Now you said the first is that you get a consumer to align with the product, right? I think that is the biggest challenge that a startup investor faces, a startup entrepreneur faces. So is there any way that you could shed light before you move to the second step?
Certainly. So you need to do rapid prototyping, get in front of your customers, listen to them, and continue the listening process throughout your journey. At no point you can believe that you've got the perfect solution and you've arrived in life. That feedback mechanism and that engagement mechanism has to be there. The ability to listen, quickly adapt, bring out the next version of the solution, service has to be there. Agility has to be there. This can actually take a full day, but you
Very
need...
well put up, actually, true.
The second problem with most of the entrepreneurs, there are entrepreneurs who are entering the space in after 60s and 70s. There was a full article that was carried. I think that's the most beautiful age to become an entrepreneur.
My journey is similar, but probably not that late.
You are not in 60s. Don't fool people, okay? The Leela Group is one such example. Captain started it after his retirement. My lunch is provided by 4 women who, post-retirement, decided to set up a service that they run on Swiggy. That's the entrepreneurship culture that's in this country. But anyway, broadly, there are people in their 20s and 30s who believe that 10 rows of Excel can move them from 0 to 100 crores, and building beautiful PowerPoint slides can get them the $1 million investment. That's a big problem. There is no other way to solve it but to keep meeting your investors and keep being sent back for better answers. That's what teaches the most. And the third is to recognize the white space. If you are going to be a Me Too, who needs 10 more laundry apps? Bombay has 1 laundry app, that's good enough. You don't need 1 more app that does the same thing for you. So recognize the white space is one big area. I would like to summarize it between these things, because there are many more, but we could go on. Thank you.
I think very well put up. I think these are actually 3 very critical points which help entrepreneurship, true. Right? And if you're able to make that space, understand the white space, but I think the challenge actually, Jaideep, is finding this thing. Because I've seen people sitting at a time when you have a product and you see that the industry around, right, has something which is similar to your product. right? Or whatever you have started, somebody else has started doing the same thing, right? And trying to create differentiators in the market. Now in that market, how do you understand the consumer, feel, connect, and try to find that white space where you find a product which is distinguished? Is there,
So, great question. Thanks for giving me a preview into your book so that I could come prepared over here. She's mentioned Uber Eats in her book, and as we said today, Uber Eats has exited the space. That's the velocity at which the market is. But let's take the example of Uber Eats. What Uber Eats did is they tried to extrapolate their infrastructure and get into something. Now, they tried to mimic what a Swiggy or a Zomato was doing, or probably what someone else. That was a Me Too business. And ultimately they had to say, okay, we can't burn cash in every line of business that we have. Let's shut this down and let's focus on what we do. Didi in China literally mimicked Uber in the US. But by the time Uber entered China, Didi had a big market this thing. And Uber opened up the front in India as well. And they found that they were burning cash in China and India. They said, okay, we are the leaders in India. We are the laggards in China. Let's shut down China and only focus on India. So the white space is not just in terms of product offering, it could also be a market. It could also be a niche. All the time. You're right.
You are an entrepreneur who runs, Dr. Shweta, for you this question, right? So where you run a business which is your thing, and I've often had a discussion with you, we spoken about scalability, right? So you want to scale up a business. Now, looking at a business, what are the challenges of scalability that one finds when one wants to scale up the business? Would you want to share those?
Yeah, so when you start as an entrepreneur, if you do not have scalability on your mind when you start your business, so you start your business because, many entrepreneurs, I wouldn't say most, but many entrepreneurs, first generation entrepreneurs know that they have a great idea, they have a great product, and they can make a great difference. So that's where they start. At the point, scalability is not something they are constantly thinking of as they're growing their business. So then there comes a stage where you feel that your business has grown and you are making a difference, but you haven't identified your target customer very, very clearly. You're being too many things to too many people, which I'm talking about my own experience, because I started with saying I am good at these 10 things and I can make a difference, because I think every individual finally, the journey of entrepreneurship can be hard, and it's satisfying only at the end of the day when you realize that yes, I have made a difference. So only making a difference is what drives you for the first few years of your life, and when you realize that yes, you're making a difference and a significant difference, that's when the idea that now I want to scale this. So I was just telling Dr. Sonal that at the point you say that now if I don't scale this, I don't feel good about it. I feel I'm doing something unfair to myself and so many people who could benefit from this idea. That's when scalability comes in. And that's when you have to start eliminating. You need to say that I need to give up on a few things. I need to strongly say no to a few things. So for me, that's what the journey was. That's why I said that initially I started more as a doctor. So, a doctor has a very, there's no imagination in a doctor's thinking. It's a very protocol-based thinking. And like you rightly said, entrepreneurship is not an Excel sheet. Entrepreneurship is not a calculation. So it's not like a mathematical calculation that is going to help you scale. Entrepreneurship is something totally from the heart. So when you realize that, okay, you've been too many things and this is not scalable, and at that time, again, I was talking about the challenges. So the painful decision of saying no to what you can do well also starts, because you got to choose between this and that. And then when you decide your niche, and when you realize that what void you are filling for a lot of people and how you can do it differently from the competitors, because aesthetic medicine is, that way we can say that there are so many players in the market today. So everybody, today if one business is doing well and somebody is rating it as this is like a hot business, everybody wants to get into it. So in a market that is overcrowded, unless you stand out differently by your belief, I would say, by the final offering, unless you can communicate clearly that what exactly is the difference you make in whose life and how that's going to transform that person's life and a lot of things in general, you shouldn't be thinking about scale. So once you get that very clearly, then probably setting up of systems and processes, and the more boring work of entrepreneurship starts. So the exciting work ends and the other things begin. And again, I have been, I do it all alone as of now. So again, for me, I will talk about my story. So one person has definitely, if you're doing well, despite being all alone, it means you have skewed strengths. So you do some things extremely well and the other things you find them extremely difficult. So at that point, finding the right team who can share your values. So it's that journey of finding the right set of people who have strengths different to you but who are driven by the same passion and the same mission that you are. So I think for that has been one of the challenges of scalability for me.
And very well put. Because obviously, I mean, the business has to grow. There has to be a team which is able to look up to your vision and take the business forward. That's how you scale up the business. I want to ask you, what is the advice that you would want to give entrepreneurs? Since my book is all about entrepreneurship. So, I mean, what is the advice as a young entrepreneur who has, in the last 9 years, added a lot of value to the business and helped it to scale to this level, the family business? So, what do you think about it? I mean, what is the advice that you would want to give?
The advice I would give to entrepreneurs that are there, I think, have your own path. I think create your own success path. You should know where your end goal is. As I was just listening to her and thinking, saying that we always knew we wanted to become an FMCG dairy-led company. Which path we took was very different from what everybody else was doing. Like the cooperatives were only doing, liquid milk and selling liquid milk, and where we on the other end, where you have Nestle's and Britannia's were doing only branded sell. We said we want to do something completely different. We want to be there across the channel. We want to do a value-added product. We set up a cheese facility, which is the largest cheese facility in India. Then we set up a whey protein plant, which was nobody which was doing. We're the only whey protein plant in India. So that's how we're like, we want to. I would suggest that create your own path. Don't see what the industry is doing. That's what I would tell the budding entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurs to create your own and know what your end goal is. And I think consistency. Not having a wavering mind on where you want to reach it. You may go into different paths, how do you reach the end goal, but I think remember what your end goal is and work towards that.
Very well put up, because that's exactly what happens. I mean, if you have to find your niche, like you said, you had the players like Nestle, etc. Similarly, I was just, in my book I've quoted Marico's
We had two spectrums, where we had Amul who was only doing, liquid milk, and the other spectrum was, so we said, we want to do something different. We want to do value-added products.
Right. So in my book, I've quoted about the Marico group, where I said that when they came into the oil segment with this baby oil, when they came with it, they realized they cannot compete with brands like Johnson. And they said, we need to exit this market, like they find your niche. And they said, let us enter that space which is exclusive to us, which a multinational company is not looking at entering. Right? So they went in for oil for hair, which is a South Asian need. So they started concentrating and focusing on that, and then the parachutes of the world came through. And they were able to create a brand based on that. So obviously to find your niche in the market and find that product which will help you gain the market space. And as Jaideep said, it's not always a product, sometimes the market which helps you grow also, right? So wonderful, Jaideep. Now the most important question that every entrepreneur has, I think I'll close with this question with you, right, is the funding aspect. Everybody wants to scale up, but our pockets are always limited. And we think, okay, now how do we grow? Right? That's when the investors are required. And you, as somebody who has helped fund so many organizations, right? So if a startup wants to today, get funding, what is the mechanism? How do they project their brand? What are the things that they need to do? How do they approach the investors, right? So do you want to share some light on that?
Sure. First, walk into the room with the Hungry Kya book. That shows that you studied. Thanks for putting advice out there, because I think entrepreneurs really need to learn lessons. You gave me a preview of the book. It's very beautifully written, it's lucid, it'll help a lot of young entrepreneurs for sure. To get your funding, and like I mentioned, you need to align with the investors, and the alignment only comes when you say what your end customer is going to buy, what is the value they see, why will they pay for your product. And of course, once you have cracked that, everything else will fall into place. But you need to go through and build a relationship with your investor. It's not just, here's the next big idea, I think it's $1 million. Right now, I have a guy who's chasing me on my WhatsApp. Here are the 7 people, here is my valuation, what's the update? and that person has met me only once. It's not about just meeting and throwing the idea over there. You have to build a relationship with your investor, understand what their objectives are, understand what you are saying. Sometimes maybe that investor is not able to help you. Maybe the investor will refer you to someone else who's wanting to work in that area. So there's no one formula, but don't try to close investment deals through just emails and WhatsApp and PowerPoint. You have to be out in the market trying to win the investor like you win the customer. There's a lot of hard work and patience.